Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the September 30th, 2020 episode of the Cyber Insecurity Stream. My name is Neil Bridges. Again, just had to check and make sure. Thank you all for joining me today. Welcome to all of our new joiners. Welcome to all of our regular visitors. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, we do stream from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. We are here to elevate the conversation around cybersecurity. What exactly does that mean? We have a problem here in our industry, and I'm not afraid to talk about it, right? Where we don't have real conversations about the topics that affect our ability to secure people, data, and companies. And you'll see that when you listen to some of the conversations that we have here and the guests that we bring in, right? Cybersecurity is an ever-changing landscape, and our goal really is to focus on multiple aspects of that industry here on the stream. You will hear terms like red teamer and blue teamer, and you may think that you're out of your league. You're really not. We also discuss cyber risk, industry impacts of the current landscape, and really the art of the possible when it comes to dealing with today's cybersecurity issues. Now, whether you're an experienced veteran, whether you're new to the field, whether you barely know how to spell cyber, or were somebody who was born into cyber, this stream really is for you. And we really are here for everyone to participate and learn in our community. With that in mind, we regularly try to have professionals from across the industry. Don't have any guests on tonight, so you guys are just going to have to deal with me. I'm sure you'll be okay. We do have moderators in chat. Obviously, I will be answering questions throughout the stream. Your questions are very important to us. I can't stress how important your questions are to us. They really are the prime value that comes from this stream being live. We want you to be very, very interactive and very, very engaged in the questions that you ask of this chat. We've got, between myself, between the moderators that we have, between a lot of the folks that we have inside of inside of chat, we've got tons of experience here, and so everybody can benefit from your question. There is no question too stupid. Trust me, there's always a good question that's out there, right? And so ask your question anytime about any topic, whether it's something that we're talking about on stream, whether it's top of mind, and we will do our absolute best to address those topics. We broadcast via Twitch for our regularly scheduled broadcast. But you can find videos either in the video section on Twitch or by viewing our YouTube channel. We are here for you, the community, and we strive to bring you the most intriguing opinions, points of views, and conversations in the cybersecurity industry every single stream. We appreciate all of our followers. We appreciate all of our subscribers. We have had a couple people donate to the stream already. I want to make a statement about donations. Any and all donations that are made immediately get sent over to Wounded Warrior Foundation. We'd like to thank all of our veterans for their service and sacrifice in the stream. Thank you very much for everything you do for us. We want to support you the best way possible. And so, if you'd like to support, the Wounded Warrior Foundation through the stream, that's fine. You can do that. You can head over to the About section of our Twitch page and do your donation there. Or, of course, you can go to the Wounded Warrior page yourself and donate it. Really no difference either way. There's no obligation to follow, sub, or donate. We're going to continue to deliver content to you. But anything you do, you do decide to do does directly support the stream in some way, shape, or form. And so with those logistics out of the way, let's have a conversation about tonight's stream. Conversation about some things that are going on community-wide for everybody here. As I mentioned, we do not have a guest for tonight. We do have some guests that we're in talks with, that we're still trying to work out the particulars in. I'm going to be really ambiguous about a couple of these guests because I don't want to get too much hype up, but I do want to get you guys hyped for some of the guests that we've got going on. So I'm going to give you some clues about who some of these guests are, and you can make your predictions in chat. You can make them amongst yourselves. You can blow it off, whatever you want. One of the guests that we're working with currently, potential guest, I should say, that we're working with currently, is currently the CEO. He's also a former Air Force cyber warfare operator. He's a predominant figure inside of the Industrial Control Systems company. He was a former SANS instructor. We are working with the senior cyber strategy executive for an endpoint detection vendor. And we are also working on trying to get somebody from the gaming industry on the show. Especially given some of the stories that we've talked about a couple weeks ago with Activision, as well as we're going to kind of go over a report tonight from Akamai that talks about it. So we're trying to get somebody from the gaming industry on. So 3 huge guests that we're actively working on to try to get on the show. Obviously, we'll let you guys know as that happens. As always, if anybody's interested in being a guest on the show, please don't hesitate to reach out to us on Twitter or LinkedIn. You can use in chat that !Twitter or that !LinkedIn command, and Nightbot will give you the links both for Twitter and for LinkedIn. You've seen, hopefully, if you've been here for a while, you've seen how the show works. You see that we bring people on to banter and to talk about. We've brought everybody from, the lowest level security analyst. If you remember, several months ago we had Keith on. We've had my good friend Joe and Jeff on as well. And so, I just want to remind everybody that guests aren't particularly limited to, people of any particular, status in an organization or whatever their prestige is. I want you guys to be hyped because I'm hyped when we get some of these high profile guests. But if you just want to come on the stream and BS about cyber with me, during one of these, then absolutely, please don't hesitate to reach out to us as well. We can, do an interview with you on camera, make sure that you're, you've got some good, some good synergy on camera, and would love to have you, participate with us the same way that we've had other people participate. And so I wanted to make that really clear that this is not limited to just, people of a particular grade of a company or size of a company. This is part of that community, is to have that community involvement. We've also, so moving on to some more of the community type stuff that we've got going on. We have finally started to add badges and emotes to the stream. May seem like a kind of a small thing. It's really not. It really it's something for you guys to kind of show off your contributions, and a way to show off like the longevity that you've been with the stream for a while. We are still waiting for the emotes to get approved by Twitch. We've submitted some emotes. We've got some. I spent a lot of time doing the emotes, and by a lot of time, my Photoshop skills are not overly great. But we did try to steal borrow some emotes, and then, graphically make them different so that we could call them ours. We've got 2 very awesome Hackerman emotes that we're waiting to get approved for our tier 2 and our tier 3 subscribers. We've got a dude in a hoodie. We've got, if anybody remembers, like, Johnny 5, from the old robot show. If you can pay attention to Carmen in chat about audio quality, let me know if I need to turn it up a little bit. But if you remember Johnny 5, we did have one of our viewers contribute a Johnny 5 emote that we're waiting on to get approved as well. So new emotes, new badges are coming in. You can start to see some of the guys in chat have got a couple of the loyalty badges with a little nerd logo next to them. So be on the lookout for those. This one I'm super excited about. So yeah, see, we got Short Circuit. That's right, Johnny 5. We may play a clip of that when we finally get the Johnny 5 emote approved. No disassemble. I am super excited for this next part. I get super excited for everything, as you guys can tell. We are, in this stream right now, the very first cybersecurity streaming channel to be able to offer you the ability to hack planets. I want that to set in for a minute. You guys can now hack planets. Thank you very much to the leadest of lead hackers. Crumbs was taken. You've seen him in chat, quite a lot. We have created down at the bottom. You'll see a little icon down there that says hacked planet score located at the bottom of your chat window down there at the bottom. By participating in our efforts to hack planets, you as the community now get to determine when our next giveaway is. If you've been a part of the stream for a while, you know that we do tons of giveaways. You can actually kind of look over my shoulder here and start to see that I've got, more Raspberry Pis, more, turtles and Hack5, gadgets and things like that to give away. We'd love to give stuff away with this. Instead of just waiting randomly and just trying to randomly do giveaways, I decided to bring you guys as a community, kind of in on that giveaway. And so we have introduced the Planet Hacking Score. You can see that we've got 23 days left on the random giveaway for the Planet Hacking Score. So, lots of different ways that you can contribute to the Planet Hacking Score. You can start to see people are already starting to to drop in points for Planet Hacking Score. So make sure you continue to contribute to that Planet Hacking Score. When that does reach 100%, we will do a giveaway. Obviously, in addition to the hacking gear we've got, we're starting to onboard some sponsors. INE Training being one of the first sponsors, and so that gives us an opportunity to give away more training. And I'll talk a little bit about training here in a little bit. We've got tons of hacker gear, and then obviously as we onboard more and more sponsors, we'll make sure that they give us free gear, that we can then pass out to you guys as well. Speaking of training, those who were on the early access for the beta invites, you should have started to receive your emails. Please message Carmen Mod if you had not received your emails, but before you do that, make sure you check your spam folders, make sure you check all that stuff. Crumbs messaged me last night. He said that he did get his email for the beta invite, and so that was kind of my indicator that some of the beta invites had started to go out. So please let us know if you have not received your beta invite, and we'll follow up with your email address specifically. But I know those have started to go out. If you did receive your beta invite, please stay in close contact with myself and with Carmen Mod. So that we can get that feedback. We can provide that feedback over to INE, and let us know how that training's going. Remember, you do have 30 days access to that training. Eat the hell out of it. I mean, use up that training as much as possible. Gain access to those labs. Try to take as much of that pen testing training as humanly possible. If you're still looking for beta access, there is a wait list, but you can put !beta in the chat, and you can get the link for the website, for the beta website, and you can at least put your name on the waiting list. I can't promise that you'll get in on the waiting list. That's kind of the benefit of the early access to the stream, which is why it's important to tune into the streams and stay up to date on what's going on with the stream. But those of you who are on the beta invite should start to get that stuff. Speaking of training, today is also the last day for the discount code. So inside of chat, if you do use the ! Training inside of chat, you will see a discount code for some training. Make sure you grab that discount code. Make sure you head on over to the Insecurity website and use that discount code today. It's for 35% off of their training. And so if you don't use that today, then today's the last day that you can use it. So if you are looking for 35% off of the Insecurity training, make sure you use that discount code and head on over there and use that over there. So with that being said, we'll take a I know nobody gave me a hydrate, but I will take a hydrate here. Between Crumbs and a couple of other people yesterday, they almost drowned me with my hydrate, hacked Planet Score. Couple other community news items. Carmen and I have been working really hard on designing some very special training for everybody. Trainings, I should actually really call it, is a lot of them. You heard Theresen ask on the last stream about an OSINT primer. It was early on during some of our first streams, and then of course when we did the DEF CON stream and we did the open source CTF with Trace Labs, we talked about doing a specific OSINT stream. It did fall off a little bit due to just some of the other stuff that we had going on at the beginning of the stream. I am pleased to announce that we are close to finalizing the syllabus for that, and we are going to be looking to do a special session in October, specifically around OSINT. Right now, we're probably looking at 1 or 2 streams that are going to be totally dedicated to OSINT. We are trying to figure out if we're going to do those on a normal night that we normally do news, or if we pick a different night that we do them. So timing is still up in the air, but we're very, very close to doing that. And so that's that. You'll be looking out for things like that are going to happen in October. There goes another hydrate. All right, just give me a second. Here we go. I might have to take that one off if it gets bad. I've heard horror stories about adding that one, but I figured I'd do it anyway. We have also designed a pretty awesome architecture that brings together red teaming and blue teaming in conjunction with some automation to basically build out some core cybersecurity operations capabilities that we refer to like in a box capabilities, so like SOC in a box, red team in a box. And so we're currently designing some streams where we may actually do some live development and talk through some of the development that we're doing. Some of these activities, and we talked a little bit about this, last night with some of the people who were on the test stream last night. We're going to do a stream on setting up a honeypot. We will actually set up a live honeypot, have some of those logs feeding into, a SIM and showing you not only how to set up a honeypot, but, what to do with that data and how to implement that data. Doing a development stream around automation. And then we want to use that automation to build agile and ever-changing, basically, attack infrastructure. And so if you think about, we had a stream several months ago that talked about using the various types of command and control domains that were listed out there, setting up automation to basically do everything from establishing your phishing, infrastructure to setting up new red team C2 infrastructure, and then being able to automate and send out some of those initial payloads, as part of your red team exercise. And so we're going to do a couple development streams around that. We wanted to do one around, if you were here for the blue team stream when we had OpenSOC, we saw a lot of Velociraptor, and then there's another open source kind of EDR-ish type tool out there called GRR. And so we wanted to do a development stream around some of those hunting capabilities like Velociraptor and GRR. And then we wanted to kind of do a stream around bringing it all together around Kibana, Graylog, Splunk, and things like that, so that you can kind of see how, what it's like to build an entire, basically security operations set of capability without spending millions and millions of dollars. And anybody can do this. It's all out there, and basically just how to make all of this stuff kind of coalesce together. We have a lot of topics around this. If there's things that you're interested in seeing, please don't be afraid to drop myself or Carmen a DM, and we'll continue to add those to the list. But we wanted to, basically kind of, make sure that you're getting an appropriate amount of high-level cybersecurity conversation, as well as some of the development and systematic and bringing it all together type of content. And so this is part in ways to what I was talking to you guys about, kind of last week, where we were going to start to pace out some of those interviews a little bit more and start to try to get a little bit more balance between the high-level cybersecurity conversations and a lot of the tactical level hands-on in-depth stuff. We discussed a couple weeks ago about whether to utilize Discord or Slack for you guys as a community. After much thought and evaluation, we're going to go ahead and choose Discord. Just the integrations with Twitch and the bots and the extensibility and a lot of the features, they're just way more conducive to bringing the community together. And so with that in mind, we don't have it ready for tonight, but over the next couple streams, you'll start to see an exclamation point Discord show up as a Nightbot command. And we will be starting to allow certain folks kind of participate in the Discord and things like that. We can absolutely do Bro. We wanted to try to incorporate some Security Onion principles in there as well, since Security Onion is still a great thing, and it does include Bro, Logstash, and Kibana in there. And so we're trying to weave in the best way to bring all of the systems together, so that we can get a good full set of coverage between a lot of those open source tools and things like that. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, November 7th, mark your calendar. Okay, this was awesome. So during the stream with the lawyer last week, I think it was, or I think it was last week when we had the lawyer, the conference organizer for Secure West Virginia conference called us up and asked us if we would be interested in doing a cyber insecurity stream the Saturday night, so basically the November 7th night of Secure West Virginia. That's normally a normal night that we would stream anyway. And so there's nothing special about the night of streaming, but that's normally not that big of a deal. But obviously we're going to try to do something huge for that stream, since there is an estimated up to potentially 500 people that are going to be attending that conference virtually. So I just want to let you know that there will be something special, something awesome will happen on November 7th. We haven't figured it out yet, but there will be something happen as part of the Secure West Virginia conference on November 7th. The Worldwide Hacking Fest that John Strand and the Black Hills Information Security guys are doing, they're actually going to be doing something as part of that Secure West Virginia conference as well. And so if you are interested in participating in the Secure West Virginia conference. I'll drop that link in there real quick so that you can, start to take a look out for that. But welcome to, go participate in that. There's obviously going to be some good guest speakers. Dave Kennedy's going to be there, as well as some other folks. So it's going to be a huge conference. It's going to be a good deal. I talked to the promoter, and it sounds like he's putting a lot of time and effort into it. Think at it this way. In a world where all the conferences are virtual, this is also the year that we haven't had a DerbyCon, and we did just have Black Hat and DEF CON. And so with no East Coast conference to have, because DEF CON obviously happens out on the West, Secure West Virginia, this guy is doing a lot of efforts to try to make this the East Coast conference, to not necessarily to fill in for DerbyCon, but it really is the only real big East Coast conference that we've got going on out there. Glad to see a lot of big names like Black Hills Information Security and a lot of those other guys participating in that conference. So definitely something I think all you guys should check out and try to participate in as much as possible. Obviously, we're going to continue to look at it. If there is a CTF there, that we can realistically stream and participate in, then we'll do the best we can to try to bring the community together under our normal, CTF participation guidelines. Nobody told me to hydrate on that one, but I intentionally took a break on that one because speaking of something different, okay, let's talk about next Friday, October 9th. Now, that's not a night that we normally stream on. We're actually really going to try to do something vastly different for a stream. We're going to you can tell I'm trying to hold in some of my excitement for this one. So if you remember a couple weeks ago, when we had Roger Hale from Big ID on the stream. Well, Big ID in combination with GuidePoint Security, which did the CTF that we tweeted about a couple weeks ago, which reminds me, if you're not following us on Twitter, make sure you are following us on Twitter so that you get keyed in on some of those CTFs for things like that. As well as Cyber Reason, they have invited me out to one of the local tracks here in the Chicagoland area. Not a running track, because if you look at me, I'm not exactly the kind of guy that would run. We're talking like a car racetrack. Obviously, I'll be there with a bunch of cybersecurity vendors, GuidePoint, Cyber Reason, things like that. So we'll have a lot of cybersecurity conversations with the community that we're going to have next Friday, just as part of that entire event. However, because it's at a track, we'll also get to drive some supercars. So at some point in time during the stream next Friday, we are going to run a poll, and you all, my community, are going to actually get to pick the supercar that I'll get to drive next Friday. So next Friday stream, October 9th, starting 9:30 in the morning, okay, we're going to start streaming. We need a maximum participation on the stream, because when we run the poll, you guys, we're going to make sure that everybody's got this. These are the cars that we're going to have a choice from with which to drive. I'm not going to pick. We'll do walk-arounds. We'll make sure that everybody gets to see all the cool cars. Obviously, we're going to do interviews with a lot of the cybersecurity vendors. We're going to talk to them. We're going to do some interviews and things like this. But at some point in time, when it comes to making a decision about what car we're going to drive, you guys as the community are actually going to get to choose for me. If we can continue to work out the details with the track runners, we'll also try to see if we can't put the phone in the car, and you guys can do a ride along with me. We'll see how that works out. I don't know how that's going to work out. We'll do our best to try to make that work out, but at least it'll be something different. We'll get to do a little bit of cybersecurity conversation. We'll get to do a little bit of looking at some supercars and things like this. But I'm excited about it because I'm actually kind of interested to see what you guys pick for me to drive. I'm actually kind of very excited to see what you guys would have me drive. I know on that list of cars, the ones that I would pick for myself to drive, but I feel like that I feel like adding a little bit of element to it, and I really want you guys to decide for me on that one. So excited for that one. Very, very excited for that one. That one also, since it'll be early in the morning, our European and Pacific viewers should be able to get to participate in that stream too. So mark your calendars next Friday. We'll go ahead and make sure that it's on the stream schedule for everybody as well for that one. One last thing, I promise one last thing. I've told you we had a lot of updates for today. Yesterday, several of you tuned in last night for the first ever Cyber Insecurity Attack Map beta version. That was a test. We ran it for about 13 and a half hours yesterday. We were playing around with the idea of trying to do an attack map that basically doubles as our offline screen in between the streams. If you've tuned into the stream when it's offline, you'll see that we've got that kind of static image that says offline on it. Excuse me. That's okay. That seems to be what everybody else has done. We are thinking about doing something different where maybe we put an attack map up. If you were on the stream last night, we tried to pick some elements that we thought were important. Now, it's not finalized. We did decide to do a test run last night to see if there was any interest. We will probably do more of these test runs to see how it works out, collect a whole bunch of metrics. If that's a functionality that interests you, now we call it offline. Really, it's a time where we're not doing these types of interviews and these styles of interviews. It's not really offline in the sense that the stream isn't streaming. It is going to be streaming live data, but we wanted to try to give you something of value, in between these news segments that we do as well. And so if you do see those test stream running, please feel free to tune into those test streams. If it's something that interests you, we are looking for accurate numbers to determine if we want to put any development work into that. We'll also probably do a poll later on in the stream to see kind of how everybody feels about it and see if it's a go, no-go decision for how you guys feel from a community. Let me give my 2 cents on attack maps, right? We oftentimes joke about calling attack maps like pew pew maps, and they make for really great, CISO and executive level wall art and things like that. And so that's not lost on me, kind of the stigma and information around a pew pew map. When we put the pew pew map up, the Cyber Insecurity Attack Map beta version up last night, we tried to pick things that were less pew-pewy and at least was something that you could walk away with. And so in addition to kind of the obvious pew-pew in the center, across the right-hand side, we were streaming some threat intelligence tweets that we thought were relevant. So, a list that I've curated of threat intelligence tweets, mostly when you look at it, it's things like big packets and, BGP monitoring and things like that, things that you can realistically look at, and if it shows up in a tweet, then it should be something that goes, that's a pretty interesting thing to see to happen across the world. And then across the bottom, we actually produced some vulnerability data. And I think that was the one that seemed to really get a lot of people's attention when we looked at the vulnerability data across the bottom, because it showed vulnerability attack trends, but it also showed the top vulnerabilities that were being exploited at any particular point in time. And one of the folks who was on the stream last night during the test run picked up on it immediately, where it doesn't matter whether you're a red team or a blue team or looking to see what the most vulnerabilities that are being exploited that week are, lets you know kind of, if you're a red teamer, what do you need to practice? What do you need to develop exploits around? And if you're a blue teamer, what do you need to try to make sure that you shore up or try to hunt against inside of your environment? And so that's the type of feedback that we're looking, is to not just make you something that's going to just show up on your wall and you never do anything with. We do want it to be a pew pew map that does provide you with some value. And so as we do more of those beta test runs, please provide us with that feedback on the pew pew map. We're looking for that. We're looking to try to decide if we're going to do anything with that. Wow. Okay. So that was a lot of our community update. Again, I appreciate all of our followers. It looks like we got quite a few followers just here in the last 30 minutes. All of our subscribers, all of our regulars, all of our new joiners, thank you all very, very much. Welcome very, very much to the Cyber Insecurity family. Thank you, Festivus, for reminding me to hydrate. You're going to be the guy that tries to get me to die from water poisoning throughout the entire stream, aren't you? All right. There will be a cool soundtrack, Security Guru Guy. We're trying to walk that fine line between looking for music that's not going to get us copyright violated on Twitch. So I'll continue to curate playlists and curate YouTube links and things like that have the least likelihood to cause us to get into trouble with the copywriters. But yes, there will absolutely be a cool soundtrack to go along with it. As with any soundtrack, right? You can please everybody some of the time or some of the people all the time, but you can't please all the people all the time. And so we'll do our best to try to find the best middle ground that we can when it comes to a soundtrack. All right. Now, heading over to what everybody has tuned in for tonight, which is the news for tonight. Actually, before we get into the news, I do want to start with a tool that I found, just dropped today. I know this looks like a blob. I'll kind of give a walkthrough here in a little minute, and I'll go ahead and drop this into link for those folks who can't stand on waiting on me to yab my mouth. You guys can, kind of start using it yourself. So this is something I think is applicable to both red teaming and blue teaming today. It's called the Itzner OST map, and the link for it is in chat right now. It is a tool that has a library of a multitude of threat actors as well as the offensive capabilities they use. Not MITRE. So that kind of statement is a little bit broad, and I'll kind of get into why I think this tool is a little different. But I guess let's take an example. So obviously you can zoom in or zoom out on it. Let's pick on Fancy Bear just for an instance. So you can kind of see they've got different colored dots here. Red is for threat actors. Blue is for particular types of modules that they use, and then the yellow is for the particular types of ransomware that they've gotten. So if we take a look at Fancy Bear, for instance, you can simply click on Fancy Bear and it'll highlight, in this case, all of the different pieces of exploit code that are typically known to be used by Fancy Bear, the Russian APT, Fancyware. In this case, you can see like custom Mimikatz is up here, PowerSploit is down here, we've got a memory module over here. So this is particularly interesting because this is one of those rare times where it's a tool that benefits both the red or the blue side. Doesn't matter if you're in risk management. If you're interested in this stuff, this is one of those tools that gives you. If you've tuned into some of our streams where we talk about, how to pull on a thread and just start to learn stuff inside of this industry. So whether you're red, blue, threat intelligence, it doesn't matter. Pick on a piece of APT that and now you've got, 6 different search topics that you can start to look for right here. And so you can look at something like custom Mimikatz. Mimikatz we've talked about on this stream a couple of times. It allows you to inject into LSASS and do clear text credential dump. From a Windows computer, and so you can see that Fancy Bear uses custom Mimikatz. And so as a red teamer, you should be looking at these tools, and you should make sure that you either are familiar with these tools or you include them in your toolbox. Make sure you know how to use them inside and out. Make sure you think about how you can use them in your engagements. The reason being, obviously, other than the fact that they're cool tools to use and things like that, when you actually go to write your reports, you can then use, think about it this way: if you're writing a report, you drop Mimikatz on a box, you do Mimikatz, and you get clear text credentials as part of your engagement. Now you can come back around from a report perspective, and you can say, okay, based on this chart, you are susceptible to Fancy Bear, Oil Rig, Chafer, DRB control, all of these red things that show up as pieces of malware. You now actually get to include those in your pen test report, and now you've actually got something that becomes very, very risk relevant, not just to the director that you may present that report to the CISO and potentially to the CIO, because you can tell them explicitly what potential threat actors or what potential threat model you're looking at that they might actually be susceptible to. Now, on the blue teamer side, if you're using this in conjunction with something like MITRE, then you can kind of use this to say, okay, well, I don't know what Mimikatz is. Maybe I should go out there and learn about Mimikatz, download it, test it, make sure you understand how it works, test the traffic, watch how it works on an operating system, and then that way you can build your indicators and build your tool set so that you can then turn around and be able to hunt for these. And then you can take these and kind of reverse engineer back over and say, okay, well, Fancy Bear also uses these types of tools. Maybe I should research these types of tools or compare these TTPs with something that goes on inside of the MITRE framework. Most of the things that are listed on this threat graph from a tools perspective, you will find them out there in some open source capacity for the most part. You may get into some very, very obscure names, or some very, very obscure modules, or some things that are just really, really hard to search for, like crypto unknown. Like Google may not necessarily be able to point you in the right direction of that. So it does have some threat intelligence limitations, but I would say as a general sense, it gives you an idea about some of the APT groups that are out there, some of the tools and the techniques that they are using, as part of their campaigns. And it does give you, whether you're on the red teaming side or the blue teaming side, almost a roadmap for you to be familiar with tools and APT groups that you can then start to research. Saw a couple questions run across here. Kev B says, what camera do you use for streaming? Can you link it from Amazon? It is a Nikon D750. I didn't get it from Amazon. I got it from Best Buy. Palantir went IPO today. Nobody cares about Palantir. Palantir sucks. Oh, whoops, did I say that? CyberOflow says, rad. Welcome to the stream, CyberOflow. Glad to see you. CyberOflow, he's new to cybersecurity, coming out of the military. Thank you very much for your service. Welcome to the stream. Is there any list that maps APTs to targeted industries? I'm trying to think if MITRE doesn't do it to industry. Not open source. You'd have to pull that one together. You think so? Okay, yeah. So maybe Verizon Data Breach Report was pretty decent for that. Does it actually do APTs in the DBIR? Okay. While we check on that one, that might be a good answer to that one. But I'm not 100% sure if there's a specific list to targeted industries out there. Here we go. I got it. Nikon D750. There you go. Is it a Y or an I? I thought it was an I. So thanks, Festivus. Festivus is looking it up for the APT list. If he's got it, he'll throw that link into chat. Thank you very much for that. All right, so heading over to kind of our next topic for the night. We mentioned it a little bit in kind of the introduction, and we've talked here on stream about it a little bit, especially a couple weeks ago when Activision was suspect for their 500,000 account leak. If you've been following that, hopefully everybody who was on the stream who heard it went out and changed their Activision passwords. Hopefully none of their Call of Duty stuff got hacked. Activision actually followed up with that statement, denying vehemently that any of their stuff had been hacked. For what that's worth, we've seen companies like that deny vehemently and then come back and renege on that deal. So who knows? But I did see this today. I did drop the link into chat for it if anybody wants to have their own copy of it as well. Akamai produced this. So when you think about Akamai is what we refer to as a CDN or a cloud data network. They kind of exist almost as a massive reverse proxy where they sit in front of a whole lot of, other companies and websites and web infrastructure and things like that, and basically provide that proxy service between all the traffic on the internet and all of these websites, behind there. And so whenever you hear about a massive DDoS attack, we've talked about it on stream a couple of times where we talk about Cloudflare, detecting some of these massive DDoS attacks. Akamai is also in that same business of being able to route, filter, and analyze a lot of that internet traffic that's going on out there. And so, from their perspective, they're looking at it from some of the traffic that they're seeing from a threat perspective. Nothing in this report is overly shocking. I didn't really bring this to you because this report is like, oh my God, some eye-opening thing. It is geared directly to gamers. I did want to kind of bring some points of attention that I thought, were interesting, just from a data point perspective. The first being this one right here. This one's talking about, DDoS attack events. That it seems to be, at least in the circles that I, kind of discuss with when we talk about gamers, are all worried about DDoS attacks and kill switches on their PS4s and Xboxes and things like that, creating, lag switches and things like that. And so what I thought was interesting about this chart right here, right, is that when you look at this across the last almost 12 months worth of DDoS attacks, you can see that attacks against gaming infrastructure actually, on average, overall, represents roughly about 1/3 of all of the DDoS attacks that Akamai detects, and they do go up and down. With respect to the rest of the industry, but it is pretty much almost a third of the attacks that are seen out there by Akamai networks are specifically targeted towards gaming infrastructure and gaming related activities. One of the things that they did note was when you see a couple of the spikes that they've got and a couple of the dips that they've got around in here. They notice that this is typically summertime when kids are at home and thus have more time to game and do DDoS attacks, and then they drop significantly during those times off and then peak back up and then drop back down. Then obviously there's a giant spike here in April whenever COVID happened, as everybody was at home playing video games. And so it is interesting to see how, especially as they make a note here, about how it drops off when all the kids start to go back to school and things like that. Just the types of things that you can see just by doing mass data analytics across all the DDoS traffic, that happens out there on the internet. And then one of the other ones that I thought was interesting, down here on page 15, for those who are following along, are they call it credential stuffing. I guess they're not calling them password sprays anymore. I guess they're calling them credential stuffing attacks. Basically, it's where you take the dictionaries of known passwords that are out there, and there's tons of these dictionaries out there that talk about the top 10 passwords for 2020 were QWERTY, password 123, 123456778, things like that. And they take those commonly used passwords, or even they take some of the dumps from like the LinkedIn breach or some of the other breaches that are out there. And then they take those credentials and they just basically point them at a login site. Think about your like O365 login site or something like that, and just start jamming those passwords with usernames in there until they get one that pops. And so, again, with this one, I thought that this was pretty interesting, just in the sense to see relatively consistent, especially as it pertains to the rest of the industry. Throughout the years, you can again see the spikes that correlate to different seasons, different seasonal type activity, and then a relative lull that existed kind of towards Q3 and Q4. Of last year on into Q1 of this year, until basically COVID happened, and then we saw a huge spike with this. So for those who are data nerds like me, like this is the type of data that love to be able to build inside of our own security operations centers, because when you look at this tells you, especially when you correlate these to seasonal type events like 4th of July, like Labor Day, like Halloween and Thanksgiving and things like this gives you a real good opportunity for which you can really start to predict these types of attacks if they are in your industry or if they are in your threat model. Things like that are awesome. I'll show you one last note on this one. And this is the one I saved the best for last, here towards the bottom. So this one was part of their survey. And this speaks to some of the cultural / consumer, how much do consumers care about cyber attacks, sort of thing that we see pretty frequently. And this is the one that's on page 33 if you're following along in your book, right? And if you look at this, some of the questions that they ask, right, is how worried are the players about accounts being hijacked? And if you look at all three of these, I'll count 48% as being, at least, halfway there, right? But more, halfway or more than half of everybody who was surveyed as part of these surveys said that they had not thought about it and they were not worried about their accounts being hijacked at all. And I don't want to harp on it too much, because I know we talk a lot about it. You've heard almost every guest that we've brought on the stream really kind of harp on how people don't really care about cybersecurity because they know that the banks and other organizations are going to take care of them. And it's actually highlighted here down on the next page as part of this, where it says that who is responsible for cybersecurity in gaming, and 76.2% of the respondents said that the gaming companies were responsible for cybersecurity in gaming. And so, really that gets back around to, we don't think that cybersecurity is our problem. I generalize we as the human population, not we necessarily on the stream, right? We're not holding we're not holding ourselves accountable for our own cybersecurity, especially when it comes to some of the things that are used for gaming, like your accounts to log into this stuff, where things like that are. So just more verification that nobody really thinks it's their responsibility. It thinks it's the company's responsibility to protect them. Can you share that link? Absolutely. There we go. There's the link for that one. Curious how many of those players have MFA enabled. Actually, I do think that is one that's on here. I thought I saw it when I looked at it. Yeah, right down here. What measures do you take to keep your gaming accounts secure? They do. 89% of them did admit to saying that they had MFA on there. When you look at this, there was only 329 that said they had MFA. However, on the survey, almost 1,000 of them said that the gaming companies thought it was the gaming companies responsible, and several of them thought that they weren't really worried about it. So I think this number of folks who have MFA enabled, may not be representative of the whole population, quite frankly. All right. Shifting gears a little bit to CISO related topics for tonight. We have talked on the stream about the massive, awesome success that Twitter has had, with their hack over the summer. Apparently they have had the position basically unfilled, the CISO position unfilled since about Q4 of last year. And so it only took a massive hack of global proportions and a cryptocurrency scam for them to turn around and decide that they needed to hire a new CISO. And so as you can see here, they've brought in Rinki Sethi. I have reached out to Rinki recently and congratulated her on her job, new job at Twitter. I've also asked if she's interested in coming on the show. I'll let you know if she responds or if any of my connections are able to put me in touch with her. She does have a pretty good background with Rubrik, IBM Palo Alto, Intuit, and eBay. Like I said, the only reason I bring this up is I thought it was interesting that Twitter had an unfilled CISO position, and it took a breach for them to turn around and decide that they needed a CISO, and it does kind of beg the question, right? Which is, what happened in the culture inside of Twitter, where when they had the CISO leave, last year in a quarter, it took them, almost 10 months before they were able to fill it. But then as soon as they have a breach, it took them, what the Twitter breach was maybe 2 months ago now, and they were able to fill a CISO role in a pretty high-profile CISO role at that within a couple of months. So take that for what it will. Speaking of cyber attacks, let's talk about the United Health Service. So the United Health Service is a Fortune 500 company. They operate more than 400, some odd hospitals, across the U.S. and the U.K. They got hit with ransomware over the weekend. Now, we don't know many other details other than they got hit with ransomware. That's obviously something that we've learned on the stream is not a very new conversation. We seem to have that conversation on a little bit too frequent of a basis sometimes. What I wanted to highlight, one that I thought was pretty interesting about this one, is when you go and you read through this one, obviously they did talk about some patients were being turned away by emergencies. This gets back into the conversation we had the other day about, a patient dying and whatnot. But you pick up on here, it says, according to UHS employees. Now, this is very similar to kind of the problem that we ran into, right, when Garmin had their ransomware a couple months ago, where we as the community had to hear about the ransomware from the employees and not the company. But I want to kind of tell everybody a story, real quick before I get into kind of the crux of what I really want to talk about here. When we talk about disaster recovery, we talk about how important it is for you to have disaster recovery plans. We talked about it, as it pertained to COVID, and how, those disaster recovery plans were very important for dealing with all of a sudden needing to change, your work habits. If you're part of an organization that has data centers in, say, Puerto Rico that are very, very prone to hurricanes, then you've got disaster recovery plans to, help bring your business back up and running, and keep that continuity of business running, in a post-hurricane, type scenario. This all relates into that huge giant concept that we've talked about on stream a couple of times of tabletop exercises, and just how important tabletop exercises are. I don't think we can really stress enough or pound the sand enough about how important tabletop exercises are inside of an organization. You may be doing tabletop exercises now, or you may not. And so that's kind of why I want to have this conversation about tabletop exercises. And I'll tell you here in a little bit why it's particularly important to this UHS incident. Oftentimes when we talk about tabletop exercises, people get very, very fixated in on penetration testing or red teaming type activities, where maybe they simulate, a threat actor inside their environment, or maybe they simulate a ransomware on an SAP system or a domain controller or something like that. You may also have, tabletop exercises where you involve a risk management team, or you involve, your BCP, disaster recovery team, where you may do a tabletop exercise around, the hurricane incident that I gave, or the earthquake incident. I think all of those are perfectly fine. I think those are all examples of tabletop exercises you should do. I think tabletop exercises should be run at multiple layers inside of an organization. They should be run at, your incident response layer, at your pen testing layer, your mid-tier management layer, your executive layer, even your senior executive layer, all the way up to your CEO. I think, you should incorporate all those different layers when you're talking about running, tabletop exercises. Don't do them all together. That's not a message to run out and do a tabletop exercise from your CEO all the way down to your pen tester. That's a massive tabletop exercise that I do not recommend at all. Lots of bad things could happen from that. I was in a pharma company, and I won't give the name of the pharma company. It's, but I was part of a pharma company one time, and we were doing disaster recovery drills with the executive team. This would be EVPs, SVPs, so folks who owned the responsibility for multiple business divisions across, across the company. Obviously, we would train on all of the normal cyber and business continuity stuff that I talked about. But one of the first really, really big crisis level events that I participated in was one where we had, all the supply chain folks were there. We had all the marketing folks were there. We had all the legal folks were there. And it was one of the first companies that I'd actually ever seen that actually incorporated a social media control strategy inside of their tabletop exercises. And this is exactly why. When you look at what happened here with UHS, they had gone out, or some of the employees, when we talk about, here, according to employees, some of the employees went right out to Reddit and started posting on Reddit about the cyber attack that UHS had going on, and had started basically a Reddit thread, talking about this being a ransomware attack, and talked about imagine people dying and things like that. We trained on this type of social media control strategy as part of our BCPDR and our tabletop exercises. And so when I saw this UHS thing, and when I saw this kind of how this whole Reddit thing had unfolded, this is really what I wanted to bring you guys up, is to kind of highlight, we may sometimes brush off BCPDR plans. We may sometimes, brush off, oh yeah, I do tabletops and things like that. But we oftentimes overlook what could potentially happen if, your employees, especially in a day and age where you're doing a ton of social media and everybody's got access to Twitter at their phones and things like that. What if they run off and they start to post about some type of ransomware attack? onto something like Reddit or Twitter or something like that. This one had 207 comments. It's got 614 upvotes. So this one got a lot of traction from kind of the Reddit perspective. But this is something that if you're not ahead of and you're not working with your marketing team on, or even your legal team on, could pose some unnecessary media attention for you. I'm getting a hydrate. Oh, I'm getting a stretch too. Gosh. All right. There's the hydrate. There's a stretch. Thank you for that. So some of the key takeaways that I would say here is definitely practice your BCP DR plans. Thank you for that stretch. That actually felt really good. Make sure you're practicing your BCP DR plans. If you're in a position where you do work a ton with your legal and marketing team, go out there and ask them if they've got a marketing strategy for how they handle, or if they've got a social media strategy for how they would handle a potential social media post of somebody talking about a cyber attack, or what they would actually do if it were to get out via employee social media accounts, that there was some type of social media attack. If you're in a SOC, if you're working in an incident response team or something like that, make sure you familiarize yourself with your social media policy. And it's not uncommon for us to build into any of our threat intelligence platforms. So whether you're using Recorded Future, whether you're using, Threat Connect, any of those other things like that, it's completely okay, and it doesn't really violate any of the GDPR, the CCPA stuff, for you to monitor hashtags that are relevant to your company. I know one of the SOCs that I worked in had a huge, giant screen inside of the SOC where they basically had a tweet deck sitting on the monitor, and they monitored hashtags that were very, very relevant for that company. And that's something that, if you do have that you can utilize and you can operationalize, does give you a lot of visibility whenever something, happens. Again, remember, your users are going to be the front lines of a lot of your defense. And so if you use social media as another indicator, based on your user behavior, then that may give you an indicator that something's going on that hasn't quite made its way over to the SOC yet. Looking at questions. Have you heard of the card game Backdoors and Breaches? Yes, heard of Backdoors and Breaches. Haven't got a chance to play it yet. Great topic. Thank you very much, aphrase29. Appreciate you. Glad to see you on the stream. Looking forward to our next one-on-one. All right. So moving on from there, that kind of covers a lot of the news topics for today. I want to kind of move over and actually talk a little bit about career. It's been a little while since we've done something specific around career. Whoops, sorry about that for everybody's ears. But I thought tonight would be a good night to do it. And so what I did earlier today was I reached out to everybody via social media. Reach out, I mean, I usually just kind of communicate through my social media avenues, and let everybody know that we were going to do kind of a live resume. I don't want to call it a critique. I don't want to call it a roast. I just want to kind of do a feedback session when it comes to resumes, and kind of asked for a call for resumes, if you will, from everybody that's out there. And kind of got a lot of feedback from that. I did get some resumes, and so I picked 2 resumes that we're going to kind of go over together tonight. And we'll kind of do kind of a small little critiquing session. This is applicable to everybody. Excuse me, whether you're new to the career field, whether you've been in the career field for a while, whether you're kind of mid path of your career field or looking to change it out, we'll kind of be able to talk through some of the examples that we've got here, and really kind of talk about what you should be looking for, what at least what I look for into resumes when I'm looking at them, and kind of how I think resumes should generally be laid out. So before we get into that, I want to kind of give some statistics, because me, I data mindset type individual. I like to do a lot of statistics with a lot of the stuff that we've got on. And so I did find this article that I thought was very interesting, right? Which was views and misconceptions about cybersecurity as a career path. And so we've had this question kind of come up on the stream quite a bit, and we've talked about what does it take to get into cybersecurity. It does, we've had conversations about like, are you too old? We've actually had somebody ask on stream if they were too old to get into cybersecurity. And do they need this type of cert? Do they need this type of cert if they're going into pen testing? Do they have to have a programming degree and things like that? And so, when I saw this, I thought it would be really relevant to have with a resume conversation. And so this was done by ISC Squared. This was obviously a survey that they had done, but I wanted to kind of talk through a couple of these surveys that they had done and kind of give you my perspective and my take on a lot of this stuff. So in their survey, they had asked the question, if you were interested in starting a career in cybersecurity, where would you begin? Not where should you, but just if you were asked today, where would you begin in a new career in cybersecurity, what would you do? And you can see that 26 respondents said that they would go back to school. 22% would earn a certification, 14% would inquire in their team or employee, and 13% would teach themselves. I think this right here very much shows the very traditional mindset where if you were going from, a doctor to a lawyer, you would have to go back to school to learn a completely different, set of academia to make that transition. I think this is one of the very, very first big misconceptions that I see here with getting into cybersecurity is that you do not have to go back to school at all. If you were to begin a career in cybersecurity. As a matter of fact, if you've already gone through school, chances are if you went through school prior to today, cybersecurity wasn't even a choice for you now. And even if you went back to school today, most of the cybersecurity degree programs that exist out there will be, old and antiquated by the time you got done with school, and you will have to learn everything all over again anyway from your OJT, on the job as it is. And so, unfortunately, colleges and schools haven't been able to keep up with the agility and the, kind of the forward-leaning, movement that the cybersecurity companies have had. And so I think that was kind of like one of the big misconceptions that I wanted to kind of throw out there, is that there is no need to go back to school to get into a career certification. Now, the other three are, where we would expect for them to be. Everybody talks about certifications, and we've talked about it on the stream before, but if you're tuning in tonight because you came here from one of the social media posts that we had done today, or from, one of the recommendations from one of the recruiters that we reached out to, earning a certification is almost everybody's easiest answer that says, I think if you want to be in cybersecurity, just go out and get a certification and you'll be fine. Or you'll get some people who say, no, you need to go out and get these 10 certifications to get into cybersecurity. And both of those answers are incredibly wrong and incredibly right all at the same time. And I think it really just depends on who you're talking to, in some cases, what job it is that you're trying to get into, and, kind of where you're at in your career. If you were to ask me, when I look across those last three on the right-hand side, I actually think, and when I go to look at resumes, and you'll see this when we pull up some of the resumes that we're going to review here in a little bit, is I actually gloss over a lot of the school and the certification stuff, and I actually gravitate more to the right-hand side, which is the teach yourself part of it. And I've said that on the stream before, is, I care more when I look at a resume about the folks who have gone out and done more on their own, and done the things to teach themselves more than anything else. So again, this is an interesting set of stats to bring up here, and so I wanted to kind of highlight my perspective on those and where I have a tendency to agree and disagree with these. Another point that I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit down here was really the. Oops, did I pass it already? Yeah. Yep. So here we go. Was a shift in a shift in the popular opinion about cybersecurity professionals. So everybody who's a cybersecurity professional, apparently you can pat yourself on the back. 71% of the people who responded to this survey think you guys are smart and technically skilled. Doesn't matter if you got cybersecurity next to your name, you are smart and technically skilled. Congratulations. 51% of the people who were surveyed think that everybody here is the good guy and that you're all fighting cybercrime, which is good, which is probably true. And I think that that's an image that I think is important for all of us to walk away, right? Is it doesn't matter whether you're red team, doesn't matter whether you're blue team, doesn't matter whether you're working governance, risk, and compliance, doesn't matter if you're Roy Hadley last week from the law firm who's doing cyber law. If you are in cyber, you are the good guys fighting cybercrime on a day-to-day basis, right? So unless you're on this stream and you are hacking into banks and you are laundering money for the North Koreans, hit me up afterwards and let's talk TTPs. But other than that, you're the good guys and you're fighting cybercrime. And so everybody should feel really, really good about that as part of either the career that they've chosen to go into, the path that they've taken, or, if you're going into this path, you should feel really good about, what it is that you're doing to actually change the world that you're out there. One of the other things that I wanted to kind of highlight was down here towards the bottom, where it talked about some of these key findings, and really the one that I wanted to pick up on, because now that I've patted everybody on the back, I kind of want to hit you with this one, which was kind of an interesting one as well, right? Gen Z, or the Zoomers, right, which are the folks who are kind of the youngest generation that we currently have out there right now. They were the least likely demographic group to cast cybersecurity professionals in a positive light. Really, only about 58% of those Gen Zers view cybersecurity professionals as smart and technically skilled, as opposed to, some of the other ones that are out there. So somehow what we've done as an industry, and I don't know what it is that we've done, but I thought that this metric was interesting because something that we've done as an industry has changed the perception of what it is that we do in the cybersecurity realm, away from 78% of the baby boomers to 58% of the Gen Zers. Maybe because Gen Zers are more technologically inclined, maybe because they're not as wowed by technology as maybe some of the baby boomers are. But I thought that was something interesting to bring out there. Yeah, Classified says the normalization of technology. I share that sentiment. I think that's a highly probable type of thing as well. So I thought that was interesting on top of that. The other kind of career article that I wanted to bring out that I thought was interesting too was, does the future of cybersecurity lie in tools or in talent? And, ironically enough, this one was done by McAfee. So take it for what it is. But they do kind of bring up that constant conversation about cybersecurity skill shortages, the number of open job recs that they do have out there. But we've also kind of seen, Classified brings up the normalization of technology. I think in our own industry, we have a whole lot of tech that has been brought into our career field. And I was on with a couple of CISOs and CIOs earlier this week, and there is a misconception, and I'm trying to choose my words carefully so I don't inadvertently rat anybody out, that adding technology to your company in and of itself increases the maturity of your cybersecurity program. And I think that that's where we are struggling from a talent and a tech perspective. Is we have talent that's coming in at us from all different places. We have talent that wants to get into cybersecurity because of some of the awesome things that we're doing. And then we have awesome tech that's coming out on almost a weekly basis with new IPOs and things like this. And we have consultants and other companies that are out there saying, oh yeah, just put in this new tech and you'll increase your maturity level. And I think it's both of those that make it really hard for a new joiner inside of cybersecurity to really understand what it is that they need to focus on to basically be successful in our industry. And so with that being said, I see chat blowing up a little bit. I'm going to head over to chat before I break into the resumes and see if there's anything I need to answer in chat. Depends on the company. If it's HR, you need certs. If it's manager, just demonstrate. So zero exploits. That's always a hot topic, right? Is, HR does need a certain amount of credentials to get past its automatic credential checker, right? That is a very, very hard thing to have to contend with. But I think what I think is a hard line to walk in this industry when it comes to getting a job, right, is the difference between going to Indeed and LinkedIn Jobs and any of the other job boards that are out there and just spamming 1,000 resumes that are out there and hoping that one of them sticks to the wall. And I sometimes think that that's what folks are conditioned to think that they have to do to try to get a job in this career field. And I think when you start, that may be how you start because you're so anxious to just get out there and get as many of your resumes out to everybody else. When in reality, I think when you start to talk to some of the folks who have been in cybersecurity for a while, it's actually very much relationship based, right? You'll have friends that you talk to in the industry, or you'll have mentors that you talk to in the industry, or you'll have folks that you've built a rapport with, and it's like, hey, I'm looking for a job. And I'll give you a very good example of this. I was talking with a company today. There is one of the companies that's interested in sponsoring the stream, and they were talking about some of the marketing challenges that they had because they were, just a very, very small marketing shop. And I said, oh, are you looking for a marketing person? They're like, yeah, absolutely. And I said, hold on for a second, because I think I know of 3 people who are currently in marketing that are looking for a job. Can I send their resume to you? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Had nothing to do with cyber, just other than just being a part of that community, but it was part of that relationship where I was basically able to just give them a recommendation that says, here, you should take a look at these guys. And I think it's that personal relationship that folks who are new to cyber or are looking to change careers, I think that's what sometimes that they have a tendency to overlook is how do you develop a relationship, or how do you develop some relationships to where you get to avoid that whole HR business by actually having a relationship with somebody who can get you the introductions, who can vouch for you, if you will, to kind of get around there. And so you're right in the sense of you do need the certifications in some senses to get past HR, but I think that that's a strategy, which is a strategy centered around, I'm going to take my resume and I'm going to send out 1,000 resumes and hope that one of them sticks to the wall, versus the one where you're cultivating relationships and trying to rely on those relationships to advance your career. Security Guru Eyes, certifications catch you out of recruiters and distinguish you from those without, in my opinion. Do they mean you are the best at the job? No. I would disagree slightly, Security Guru Guy, that I don't think certifications are catching the eyes of recruiters anymore. I think recruiters are getting smarter than that. I think recruiters, and I'm trying to get a recruiter on the stream to help understand what's going on inside of some of these recruiters' minds. I think that they're looking for talent. I think the good recruiters from the bad recruiters will make the distinction between somebody who's just cert stuffing. And here's what I mean by cert stuffing. I've hired thousands of people throughout my career, and I've gone to recruiters and I've said, this is the kind of person I'm looking for. And they'll ask me what types of certs I want. And I'll be like, sure, here's some certs. Here's some skills that I'm looking for. Here's some technology that I'm interested in. The very next day, I get a resume that literally has everything on it that I just said to them. Okay. Does it mean that person has it? I don't know. Does it mean that person doesn't have it? I don't know. That's the problem, is that these recruiters get paid to put a person in that seat. And so they're not really interested in whether you vet whether that person has a cert or not. They just want you to look at a candidate and say, yep, they meet all those check boxes. Now I'm going to bring them in for an interview and I'm going to see if they sit in that seat. I don't want to say that we've devalued certifications, and that might be a very, hashtag unpopular opinion that's out there. But I think certain recruiting agencies and certain recruiters put whatever skills that they hear that you need for a job as a hiring manager into that resume, regardless of whether you have it or not. Here's a good example of this. if you've ever sat on a call with a recruiter and a recruiter says, well, do you have any Splunk experience? And they're like, well, I know how to spell Splunk because I've seen it on a banner behind Neil when he does his stream. And they go, so you've got Splunk experience, right? And then the person who's being recruited goes, yeah, I've got Splunk experience. And they write Splunk experience inside of the resume. That's how that is. I mean, it's the recruiter's job to put as many resumes in front of that hiring manager as possible. And so, I think that there's some shadiness that goes on there. Sorry, small rant there on that one. Masters in CyberSec versus a certification. It's funny you mentioned that. I know somebody who's getting a master's in cybersecurity right now, and I've told this individual that I think it's a giant waste of time. If they're doing it because it makes them happy, because it's a personal achievement, things like that, have at it. Go get your knocks off. But if you really are looking as to decide whether to spend money on a master's in cybersec or a certification, go for a certification. How do I convey that I spent time on myself during a master's and hence not pursued any of my certifications yet? Let me see if I don't answer that one when I do the resume review. Let's come back to that one if I haven't answered that one. What type of documentation on self-learning would you prefer to see on a resume? That's a very good question. Let me answer that one in some of the resume examples. One of the resumes that I'm going to look at today, there's a lot of self-learning on there, and I'll have a lot of comments on that one. So let me comment on that one. Don't be a skitty, write your own tools. JK, by the way, not serious. Yeah. Tinkering on a home lab setup. What about taking courses and using things like Cyber, Pluralsight, InfoSec? Do CTFs and try hack me and 100% Cyber Roflow. I think the home lab setup, and I think the self-learning courses, I think, especially it depends on where you're at in, from a career perspective, right? Is when we talk on the stream and we talk about how to get into cybersecurity, and I mentioned doing all of the self-learning type things that are out there, especially Cyber, Pluralsight, YouTube, home labs and things like that. When you don't have years and years of experience, those things make for your experience, and so you have to put those things on your resume, and it's not a shameful thing to put those things in your resume. And so you absolutely should put every single one of those things on your resume, but I'll talk to some of that when I do the resume demonstration, because I want to pick on some of that and I want to highlight some of that. Try Hack Me, Hack the Box are awesome. Yes, they are. Home Lab is awesome. Yes, it is. You can still do, I would still say, Security Guru Guy, regarding that, the Try Hack Me and the Hack the Box. So a good blue team will recognize that red team stuff and will actually find a lot of value in you being on a blue team with red team mentality. And given the disparaging place that we are as an industry, where we don't have nearly as many blue team equivalents of Try Hack Me and Hack the Box, business idea out there if anybody wants to capitalize on that one, I think it does show some self-learning initiatives to do the red team type stuff, even if you're applying for a blue team job, because it does still show an acumen inside of cybersecurity. If you think about our industry as a career field, we're more of a mesh network, right? So you guys have all seen, hopefully when you've been on the stream, you've seen Joe here on the stream, who's a very awesome blue teamer. I mean, he's an amazing incident responder, and I don't say that because he worked for me and he's done tons of CTFs with me. I say that because I really do mean it. He's a fantastic individual, and I've always valued his teamwork. He knows as much about red teaming and pen testing as any mid-tier penetration testing person and below, right? He's not an advanced red teamer by any stretch of the imagination, but I'd probably call him mid-tier and below. To me, that makes him one of the more, I would take him on any pen testing engagement. I would take him on any red team engagement. I would take him on any threat hunting engagement, because he's very well-rounded. We have more of a mesh network on how we look at skill sets inside of cybersecurity than I think people really, really realize. Wow, we got a bunch of people contributing. Holy cow. Classified says, networking is always the key. Yes, please. This is why when we bring on guests, we want you to try to network with them on LinkedIn. If you don't have me on LinkedIn, make sure you hit that exclamation point LinkedIn and send me LinkedIn invites if you want to. Send them to me on Twitter and things like that. Networking is incredibly important. And so if you're not interested, in networking, or you think that it's lame, or you don't think that there's value in it, we can have a conversation about networking, and I can give you tons of examples of just how important networking really, really is. CyberRoflo says, I'm glad about the offensive red team is actually what's attracted me to the industry, but now that I've dug my journey, I'm finding a huge interest in threat intelligence, malware analysis, reverse engineering. What can someone do interested in this side of cybersecurity do as far as self-study? I still think, try Hack Me and Hack the Boxes. I think are still good for you. If you wanted to do something awesome from like a home lab setup, self-learn perspective, there is an awesome company, not really company, it's more of a, let me see if I can find the website, virusbay.io, I think is what it is. Yeah, there it is. I'll link you these guys' Twitter account here. Actually, no, here, Virusbay, these guys right here. These guys are run by a Kaspersky malware reverse engineer, and they've basically created another kind of repository whereby the community as a whole can contribute malware and do tons of malware reverse engineering and things like that as a whole. Looking for communities like this and looking for people who are willing to share malware samples with you, and then, building cuckoo sandboxes, building, security onion infrastructure inside of VMs, and starting to do, like, this is one of those times where malware reverse engineering is heavily reliant on doing your own home lab setup. I do think there are most of the CTFs now do include a lot of malware reverse engineering, malware analysis type of capture the flag type things. And so I would definitely key in on those, but I still think it's important. Here's the reason why I refuse to downplay the importance of red teaming and penetration testing type learning objectives, is because malware analysis and reverse engineering is looking at what an attacker does on the box just from what artifact they put on the box. There's all these other things that happen when an attacker goes to attack a system, a network, data, whatever else it is. And I think it's important for everybody to at least have a notional understanding of what that looks like, because I think that will make you a better malware analysis or reverse engineer, or even threat intelligence person, if you understand the adversary. For those who know me, I'm a huge Sun Tzu fan, and Art of War. And one of the best quotes on there is if you know your enemy, you know the outcome of 1,000 battles. And so you need to learn the pen testing and the red teaming side so that you can understand your enemy. Classified said, do technical write-up post. Yes, do technical write-up post and post it on GitHub. Yeah, I that's an awesome one as well. If you go back to what Insecure Packet said, where he talked about like writing your own tools, less his cynicism about skitties and things like that. If you do write your own tools, you should absolutely publish them on GitHub. I have seen resumes where they have actually included GitHub links with their resume, and I have gone out there and not only looked at the code of their tools, but actually downloaded their tools and tried to run them to make sure that they worked. That is an amazingly good piece of resume advice. Yes, there is a stream. Carmen Mod, if you're paying attention, or if one of the other mods can go to YouTube and find the Threat Intel stream, that would be a good one to link for CyberRoflo if it hasn't been done already. Experience networking search degree. Napier, actually, you're going to get a promotion to VIP for that comment alone right there. That right there is the best statement, all night right there. Experience networking search degree. I like that order very much. And experience, just to clarify that, that can be doing your own home labs, that could be participating in CTFs, that could be doing your own home labs and things like this. Programs that do both school and certs today, as some schools will give you the voucher to take certification at your final exam. There are, I don't have too much experience with those. I'll kind of watch the industry and see how that plays out. Synac21 says, I work as a cybersecurity analyst. I have been with this company for 4 years now. I started very green and just an associate's degree in networking. I've since got Sec Plus, Juniper, AWS, CP Palo, certs. I'm currently getting $18 an hour. In your opinion, am I getting paid way under what I should be? Or am I, if you're talking an hourly rate with that experience, I don't know how big the company is. I think there's a lot to unpack there, but my knee-jerk reaction is that's pretty low. Cybersecurity guy, yep. Look up Remnux on Linux and Flare, both good recommendations, as well as Geardra. Neepier says, since you hired before and have a Splunk banner, which I totally want, by the way, maybe we'll give that one away. Oh God, I tell you what, maybe we'll do it. We may give the Splunk banner away. I'm a Splunk admin in duty now, and I'd like to make the jump to a dedicated Splunk admin on my path to Splunk engineer, Splunk architect. Any advice for making each jump along the way? Gosh, that's a tough one. So if you're doing an admin and you want to go from, like admin to engineer, ultimately to architect, you need to try to get into projects where you can do almost Splunk design and Splunk implementation. If you're working for a company now, I would actually almost recommend, and if you're interested, Napier, and again, this gets back to connections, right, is let's connect somehow, because if you've got that much Splunk experience, I'd love to put you in touch with Splunk proper, and I could probably put you in touch with somebody at Splunk proper, and you can probably do some work for Splunk on their professional services side. If you were to, that's almost what I would recommend, is if you wanted to go from an engineer to an architect, I would actually go into consulting, specifically as a Splunk, somebody who does Splunk implementations. So like Blue Voyant, Deloitte, I think, does some. I can't remember if Optiv, that's the one I'm trying to remember, is if Optiv does Splunk implementations, or even Splunk as an SE or PS type person. And I would do that because that's where you're going to actually get Splunk implementation experience. And I think that may be what you're missing to go from engineer to architect, is you need to actually have some chops of building a set of Splunk infrastructure kind of on your docket there. CyberOflow, that was going to be a question of mine. Your comment about Blue Team Hackbox. Have you guys heard of Project Ares? It looks like it could be a cool Blue Team training resource. I have not looked at that. I don't know what that one is. But everyone always thinks they should get more, and that's why I'm asking. Yeah, so pay is a hard question. So I do mentoring for a lot of folks. This is obviously open to the community. If you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn and Twitter, but I do career mentoring for folks, and part of my career mentoring is helping them with pay conversations, because just based on that statement alone, Synac, that's a weird, that statement does not sound right to me, and I'd want to have more of a conversation to dive deeper into that. But I do think that there's two problems that we have with pay in our industry, and I know this is always a hard topic for folks to talk about because pay has always been very sensitive here in the U.S. versus lots of other companies or countries, or even coming from the military and things like that. We have two problems in cyber when it comes to pay. The far extreme on this side, right, is we're so anxious to get into cybersecurity that we literally take whatever it is that they give to us just because we're so anxious to get into cybersecurity. Hey Napier, thank you for the Prime sub. Welcome to the cyber and security family. Then the other extreme on the right hand side, right, is we've got our heads up our ass so far, and we think that we're the greatest thing since Kevin Mitnick, and we ask for $200,000 a year with 4 years of worth of experience. We don't have a lot of really good middle ground in terms of understanding what our worth is inside of cybersecurity, and so don't feel bad if you're struggling with the pay conversation. We're in a weird spot in our career field. That's why I offer, my mentoring to folks, is so that we can, try to have more informed pay conversations. But that is one of the harder conversations that we do have in our industry. Ruthless, heck yes, I recently got into the resource. Yep. So I know Ito, who runs Virus Bay. He's an awesome researcher and whatnot. So I can definitely vouch for Virus Bay. I think those guys are awesome. Whole lot of depends. Yeah. Security guru guy. Yep. So Glassdoor is okay. Glassdoor still doesn't have a lot of really good stuff for title and experience inside of cybersecurity, but is still a good resource. You're in the Southwest, incident handling, troubleshooting. You should. Yeah, if you say you shouldn't be talking Synac in the dollars per hour range, you should be talking about the 5 digits per year range. Zero Sploit says, I had a hard time getting into entry-level positions. I stopped looking for work. I'm going to do HackerOne and bug bounties now. I think that's awesome. Don't forget, HackerOne's good, Cobalt.io, and BugCrowd. You can do all three at the same time. There's no exclusivity, and all three of them have good programs. I've heard a lot of people moving away from HackerOne, though, because there's too many duplicates and just lots of other issues with HackerOne. So that's why I say diversify yourself between Cobalt.io and BugCrowd. All right, cool. So that looks like all of that. Let's hop on over and let's take a look at a couple of things from a resume perspective. So let's start with, if I can find the right window, that's that window. Let's start with this one. So again, you can see I've redacted who these people are, to protect themselves. Don't want anything to really want this to be a conversation over content and quality of a resume more than anything else. Okay, so first thing that I look at when I see this, and I zoomed out on intentionally not to pay attention to the content, but it's one pager. This is I don't want to call it a misconception, but this is something that I think everybody gets very, very held up on, is my resume has to be one pager. And they think that they have to fit everything in on one page. And I think that's neither a true nor an untrue statement. And here's what I mean by that. Your resume needs to reflect why you're qualified for a job. And so you have to look at it and say, do you think that you can qualify yourself for any piece of work on one page at all? I'll let you know right now, the last resume that I submitted was 3 pages long. I did have a 1-page brief that I gave to folks as kind of a read-in, but my entire resume is 3 pages long. Festivus, where am I at with my hydrates, man? You're not keeping up with me. So don't get so hung up on, I have to fit everything into one page, and think that you've got to try to cram everything. Because the other thing that I look at, right, when I look at this, there's a lot of text on this page, right? And so my eyes are really everywhere trying to figure out, like, okay, what's important to me on this resume? So that's kind of problem number one that I'm looking at with this is what am I looking at that's important? Okay, you've got some experience here, you've got projects, you've got skills, you've got coursework, and you've got education. One of the things that I hate right off the bat with this resume, right, is education and coursework. Like, what's the difference between two of those? It almost looks like what you're trying to tell me is, these are the degrees that you have, and this is the extra training that you've got along with it. Which, if that's the case, then what I would almost call this is, I would almost say education and training together, right, somewhere on a resume, and I would just have all of that stuff together if you're going to put it in there. when you talk about cryptography and authentication and penetration testing, but then you have a skills, kind of breakout down here, this gets back to what I'm talking about with this credential stuffing. You see what I'm talking about here? This is credential stuffing, okay? Credential stuffing. This is skill stuffing. You're sticking a whole lot of skills on a resume, hoping to get past those resume filters, right? I'm going to look at this and I'm going to immediately dismiss everything here because of this right here. Like, if you're going to put this on a resume, I'm going to look down at something like Wireshark, and I'm going to ask you some very intimate details with Wireshark. I'm going to ask you some very PowerShell specific commands. I'm going to ask you some I'm going to ask you about Responder, but I'm going to ask you some things like, I want to know which switch does this. I want to know what this packet looks like when it does this, because I want to try to validate whether you actually have all of these skills or whether you just looked at a job description and you decided to stick a whole bunch of stuff into a column just to get past whatever HR resume sniffer is out there looking at it. So I hate these skills sections inside a resume because I don't feel like they actually really add any value to what it is that you're trying to bring to a job. And then on top of that, when you look at what you have here for skills, and then you look at what's up here under coursework, you've got penetration testing here, and then you talk about Metasploit, Responder, Kali Linux, Nmap, all of the things that are basically inside of the pen testing toolkit, which really just, again, gets to me that everything here on the left-hand side is really about bypassing those HR filters. This is a hard resume to look at because I don't really feel like this resume focuses on what you're actually really, really, really good at. Okay. I think you're missing out when you look at this resume on highlighting a lot of the stuff that you actually have over here that I think actually means more than what you have over here. And I think you can loop in these types of items when you go over here. Because look here, you've got penetration testing here. Where is it? Here. And then you have penetration testing. I just saw it right here. If you're trying to get past the resume sniffers, why have it twice? Why do you need to pull it out over here on the same side? Okay. You can free up some real estate by getting rid of this whole section, and you can take this role right here. And this one says conducted a full-fledged internal as well as external penetration test involving web application. This is actually not a bad line for, somebody who is junior, right? This is somebody who is, they're interning as a threat research analyst. Looks like they're on their way to graduating sometime here soon. So this is actually really, really, really good experience. I don't think you need this. I think this is redundant, and I think you can gain more real estate and expand upon this a lot more. Okay. If you're going to do, and just because since I'm looking at it here, if you're going to do bulleted formats like this, be consistent. Okay. If you're going to do, I think these bulleted formats are fine. And especially since you've got a lot of stuff here on the threat research intern, I think this is good, but I would also just be consistent and do a bullet point here, bullet point here, bullet point here, all the way down. Just from a consistency perspective, because it looks like, hey, I've done all this cool stuff here, and I actually really don't care about any of this other stuff down here. And I think that's a foul to not highlight all of your job experience. Remember, everything that you've done has led you to the job that you're trying to achieve today. And so you should be proud of all of that, whether you were a bagger at a grocery store or whether you were a research assistant for the RIT networking department. I think you should be proud of all of that stuff. Here's a project section. Now, this is where, when we talk about adding in the home labs, when we talk about adding in the self-learn stuff with Udemy and Cyber and TryHackMe, this is where I think you should have that. And this is why I advocate for more real estate on your resume, is because look at all of this wasted space right here. If you were to get rid of this whole column here on the left-hand side, now you can really elaborate on some of these projects, and you can talk about some of the really, really cool things that you've done. Like when you talk about, mapping TTPs, which TTPs? Were they specific to an industry? Were they specific to a threat actor group? Like, this type of threat modeling, I think if you're going for a job, I would imagine the type of job that you're going for here is probably some type of threat intelligence job, especially working with Intel 471, which is a huge name in this space. I would get, you want a lot of real estate space here to talk about all of the work that you've done with somebody as renowned as Intel 471. So let me head over to chat and see if anybody has got any other comments on this one. Again, as you're looking at this, feel free to ask questions or comment if you agree or disagree with me. Again, this is my opinion from looking at thousands and thousands of resumes and hiring people, and this is just what I would look at when I look at a resume and look to try to hire an individual. This resume is the resume is really generalized as well. Looks like it's prepared for a shotgun approach. Yep, exactly. Applying to 100 jobs with just this resume. Very much so. Festivus hit the nail on the head, and that's my biggest problem with this left-hand side right here. We've got to get out of the mentality of doing our resumes for the shotgun approach. We need to be more surgical, or you need to be more surgical in your career search. You should know what it is you're looking for. And this leads to, and I hate to call you out on this one, Synac 21, right? But that's my fear when I see like what the conversation you guys are having around your salary right now. That's my fear when I see a shotgun type of approach with a resume like this, is that you're going to take whatever job comes your way, and you're going to get pigeonholed. If I look at this resume, you're going to come right out of college and somebody's going to offer you $50,000 a year, and you may think that's the most money you've had in your entire life, and you're just going to pick right up on there. But maybe potentially when looking at some of the skill set and looking at the company you're going to and the role you're going into, there might be an opportunity for you to probably get maybe 10 or 15,000 more out of that. And so please stay away from these shotgun type of approaches when it comes to resumes. I hate to be the cliche approach and say you need a new resume for every job submission, because that is a lot of work. When you think about how many jobs you have to apply for, you should remember, and this is an important thing to remember, we are in a career shortage in cybersecurity, which means when you go to apply for a position, chances are you very well could be the only person to have applied for that. Or you could have been the 100th person to apply for it, but it could be a bunch of recruiters who, shotgun approached resumes similar to what you did. And somebody who looks at your resume that's probably a little bit more surgical and a little more tailored may actually look at yours and say, okay, this guy actually has the skill set that I'm looking for. Napier says, always be sure you can get into the weeds on the skills you put down. Linux isn't a skill if you only threw it into a VM once. 100% true. That's why I take a little bit of a cynical approach when I look at resumes like this, and I try to pull into, you also have penetration testing in here twice. I just saw that. You have it here, and then you have it over here. This is, get all this stuff out of this resume. That needs to go away. I don't know if you're on the stream listening or not, but lots can be done here with this one. Follow the TCP stream or follow the hierarchical protocol to locate the null data. Yeah. Wireshark. I love Wireshark. Agreed. Security exercise, pen testing, a lot of good information there. Less is more in some circumstances, as it will make the hiring manager want to talk to you more and ask questions. 100%. That's why, I say there's a lot of really good data in here. There's a lot of really good stuff in here. And this gets back to, this is why I think that those of you who are doing self-learning and those of you who are doing, try hack me and hack the boxes and things like that, having project sections like this is what those are there for. This is exactly why you have this on a resume. Yeah, lots of formatting, little errors that jump out from the business side, consistency perspective. By relax, don't take it wrong. It's never a smooth see it work. We were busy all the time. should you have a tailored resume for each job you apply to? The purist of the InfoSec world will answer that question, yes. That's a hard thing to do in reality. A job hunting approach, right, isn't I'm going to go on LinkedIn, search for all cybersecurity jobs, and then take a resume and for the 1,000 jobs that show up in LinkedIn cybersecurity roles, start sending out to every single solitary one of them. That's where you're kind of swinging the pendulum too far one way or the other, right? You should be looking for, well, I want a threat intel job. Okay, well, who are the threat intel companies that are out there? Recorded Future, Anomaly, Risk IQ, go through the gamut, Threat Connect, Threat Quotient, go through the gamut of all the threat intelligence companies that are out there. I'm picking on threat intelligence because I saw somebody in chat with it. And go to their career sections, right, specifically, and look and see if they're looking for jobs and write resumes based on, the companies, what it is they do, what it is they're looking for, and how you solve their problems, right? Because even though we're in a career shortage in cybersecurity, you still want to show that you can solve their particular career problem. And so in that case, yes, you do have a resume for each job, but what you're missing is the beginning part of that where you try to surgically identify a company that you want to apply to. And so that's kind of the other side to that. For that chat that asked that question is make sure that you're being surgical about the application to the job. That way, it's less tedious for you to do a tailored resume for each job. Festivus, help out colleagues with resume and interview prep. Putting the time in doesn't take as long as you think once you're in the right frame. Absolutely, 100%. And once you do it a couple times, it gets easier and easier and easier. Security Guru guys got you, Synac 21. I kind of agree with him. We should probably have a conversation. Find the job you apply for, cater your resume to show what you're qualified for. Don't put anything in your resume you can't speak for. Yep, absolutely, all of that stuff. Back in the Midwest, East Coast, location compensated a little bit more due to the cost of living. Cost of living is less of a conversation now because of COVID. And plus, that's almost a misnomer unless you're in some place like San Jose, or New York City. But even that, some people are trying to take advantage of the cost of living from the salary conversation perspective. A lot of interviewers are interested in what courses you've taken in your master's. How do I convey that in the resume? I don't necessarily, if you're in the interview phase and they're asking you what courses you've taken in your master's, I think that right there is exactly the position you want to be in. I don't think you need to, in your resume, convey the courses you've taken in your master's. I think if you're sitting at an interview and an interviewer says, well, what courses did you take in your master's? That's exactly where you want to be. That's to Festivus's point earlier in the chat stream, which is you want to give them a reason to bring you to sit into that seat as an interview so they can ask you a question like that. So you can be like, well, here's what I've done in my master's. And then you not only get to talk to the courses you've done, but then you get to talk about some of the other great things that you've done as part of that. It gives you an opportunity to have that chain conversation. So reading that question just like it is, I don't think you put that in your resume. I think that's a conversation topic. Let's see what we got here. Before a high level, to back the conversation. I create a blog to track my journey, include whatever self-study projects I'm doing. Do any of you know firsthand if HR and or actual hiring managers take this into account and actually check out personal blogs? I don't know if HR managers do, but I know hiring managers do. So like if you're, for an IR role or a SOC role or things like that, yes, if you have personal blogs, most good hiring managers will absolutely check those out 100%. Threat intel companies I mentioned. Okay, here we go. Recorded Future, Threat Connect, Threat Quotient, Risk IQ, Anomaly, those are the 5 that I can think of off the top of my head. We've had Anomaly on stream. And so if you go find the threat intel stream, you can actually get a really good contact for Anomaly. It's AJ Nash. He's the senior strategist over there at Anomaly. We've had him on stream. I've probably got connections at every single one of those as well. Again, we can figure something out and try to get you the right connections, but those are all those are like the top 5 ones that I can think of. MISP isn't really a threat intel company though. MISP is more just like an open source one. I'm thinking companies. I don't think you can actually work at MISP. I think that's all community driven. When I took the step to get into senior management, what convinced me I was ready was myself. You're your best advocate. Absolutely, you're your best advocate. I get back to having confidence in yourself, and this is what kills me about seeing the conversation that you're having, Synac 21, is because, this gets back to when you're looking to do the salary conversations, having that feel for what your value is in the industry so that you can best sell yourself and set yourself up for success inside the industry. I'll say this about that comment, Festivus, when it comes to knowing yourself and being your best advocate. We have an ego problem in this industry. There are too many people who think that they're the greatest hackers in the world. They think that they've got 5 CVs to their name, and therefore you should shut up and bow down to them and things like that. And I absolutely despise those people. I think the egos in this industry are really what's killing us. It's the people who do that try harder mentality, and I promised Carmen that I wouldn't get on one of my swearing kicks here on stream, but I have a lot of nasty things to say about those try harder mentalities. I think it's those egos that really crush some of the innovation that comes out of the new folks in our industry. And so I say all that to say, I don't want anybody who hears this stream and to see what Festivus says. You should be your best advocate. You should have just enough ego to know that you are worth something. You're not the greatest hacker to ever live. You never will be. Well, you may. Who knows? That's not really true to say, right? But all of you are out there are awesome in your own right. Okay, you're awesome at what it is that you do, and you should know that you're awesome at what it is that you do, and you should sell yourself like you're awesome at what it is that you do. But you should take that confidence and realize that there's always going to be somebody better than you, and that's okay, because that's what keeps us driving forward and learning more. But check your ego at the door, but know your value. And I think when you've achieved that balance, I think that's when you've kind of reached that utopia a little bit on, where you're at in your career perspective. What's the best way to network with folks from these threat intelligence organizations? LinkedIn, make sure you have a LinkedIn page. If you have a LinkedIn page, I really, really hate to bring up Gary Vaynerchuk. If anybody's familiar or not familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, if you're familiar with him, he's very, very yeah. There you go, Gary V. So I was gonna say, I was wondering who else would pick up on that one, right? He's got an amazing strategy when it comes to expanding your social media search, right? And it's the I think it's the 6x6 rule or something like that, whatever he calls it, right? Six every day or something, what it is. But find 6 people who you value in an influencer space that you're trying to become more well known in, and find something that they're writing on, or find some way to comment on a post of theirs, either on Twitter or LinkedIn in our case, or something like that. And so what I would do is I would go to those threat intelligence companies. I'd make sure that you followed or you tried to friend everybody on their LinkedIn page who worked at those companies. And then whenever you see one of those guys post something on LinkedIn, comment on it, right? Hey, somebody just dropped an article. Hey, this is an amazing article. I really enjoyed this part about this, right? So that's the best way to network with them and kind of start to participate and actually start to develop that relationship with folks. It's a lot of work, but that's what networking is. My days consist of right now, working full time, obviously. But I probably on a daily basis have at least 3 or 4 networking calls a day with people who have nothing to do with my business. I won't name specifics, but I know of all the people that are in chat right now, I know there's at least one person in chat, because I see his name, on chat right now. he works for a company. I'll never buy anything specifically from his company, and that's okay. We've built a relationship where we, share, what's going on in the industry. We talk about, what's working, what's not working, what we're seeing, what CISOs are seeing, what CIOs are seeing. He's not interested in what I'm doing, from a business perspective. I'm not interested in what he's doing from a business perspective. We're just there networking and just trying to understand each other. I have no idea if it's ever going to turn into anything in the future, but it's just part of doing that networking thing. And that's really one of the most important parts about being in cybersecurity is developing those personal relationships. And so you have to look at what you do on social media. What you do on LinkedIn is really about trying to build relationships with everybody that's out there. It's not about firing off 100 resumes and, hoping that you get a bite on them. All right. Go for it. No. I'm gonna hold it down on that one. 100% agreed. Thank you very much. I appreciate that one. Attach yourself to that person. Better they know you than keep learning. Yep, absolutely. Gary V. Yep, Gary V. Yep. Plus, you never know who you can teach you something. Absolutely. This is why I wanted. Honestly, what Security Guru guy says, right? That's one of the key things right there. Is I wanted to bring a community together so that you all have access to people who hopefully will teach you something. That's how we're all going to get better. Is by all of us, learning something new. So. With that being said, I know answered a lot of questions. I want to kind of hit the other resume I got. So this resume of this individual, so where this individual is at, when you look at his resume, he's been a professional for a lot longer, than the other person. I don't think this individual included all of their work experience on here because it only goes back to 2015. But when you look at this resume, again, we're back to one pager, but you can see that this individual started at a law firm and a basically a law firm down here, and then it looks like they were a chiropractor and then jumped into cybersecurity. So this is somebody who made a career change from not cybersecurity related to something cybersecurity related. Let's talk about these. Let's talk about underneath. So this is obviously where their name and email address and phone number would appear, and I've blacked that out, obviously. And we saw this over here a little bit, right? Kind of these objective things that are here at the top. I have a love-hate relationship with these kind of objective-ish type bullet points that sit at the top of most resumes. I don't know if they work. I actually don't read them. I've never heard of anybody say, well, I didn't look at your resume because it didn't have an objective at the top. So this would be one of those times where I would really wish I had a recruiter around. If any of the recruiters that I tagged in chat are listening right now, feel free to drop your opinion or things like that and let us know. But I don't know if these actually matter much when looking at resumes. So looking at this resume, so folks who have non-cybersecurity stuff and are looking to get into cybersecurity, I think there's a little too much downplaying that's happening here on things like business valuations and negotiations for mergers and acquisitions. This feels very much like, so when I look at this resume, this feels like you're trying to say, well, it's not cybersecurity related, and so therefore I'm not going to actually talk a whole lot about it. Because when you look up here at what they've done that is cybersecurity related stuff, they're a little bit more verbose. I still think that there's a lot of stuff that's missing from this. This feels more like what I would almost expect to see out of a one-pager than anything else. This down here, especially the fact that you have a law firm, and then the fact that you are a franchise partner and an operations manager for a chiropractic clinic, like you have a crazy amount of business experience right here. you should highlight this, because one of the things that I'll tell you that every single one of us in cybersecurity, almost every single one of us in cybersecurity fail at, and we've talked about this on stream before, right, is the ability to talk to senior leader executives and be able to communicate to them on a business by business perspective. And so when I see a resume like this that actually has potentially a whole lot of non-cyber related business activity, especially where you are a franchise partner, for an entire franchise, like, there's a lot of business acumen that's not included on this that I think that you're missing out on a lot of opportunity here for that. So this is one of those resumes where I think could probably stand to be 2 pages instead of 1 page. And I would break a lot of this stuff out to really focus heavily on your business acumen. And then here you've got cybersecurity SIM analyst. You're missing some impact statements here. So one of the things when you look at this resume, not so much in this resume, because this is somebody who's brand new to the career field from a sense of, they're in college and they're getting out. But especially an individual like this who has some business experience before, you should understand the concept of providing value to an organization, or be able to provide impact to an organization. And so I would expect your bullets here, when I looked at this resume, if you were a cybersecurity SIM analyst, what was your largest deployment? How many millions of dollars was that deployment? How many nodes was it? Like, show me the broad scope of just how big of one of these SIM implementations you did. Like, when I look at this resume, what I'm missing is increased responsibilities include SIM implementation. Okay, how big? Was it a SIM with 1 computer, or was it a SIM with 100,000 computers? Back to, the individual in chat who was talking about going to do Splunk Architect work. Okay, you did a SIM implementation. That's good, but how big was it? Right? And when you did that SIM implementation, did you do architecture and design? Did you do sizing for it? Did you do, what parts of all of that stuff did you do? Because you say that you did design of SIM solutions for mid-sized organizations, but how big were those organizations? What was the biggest one you ever did? What was the largest deal you ever spun on? You're missing a whole lot of impact statement on this resume. That's the biggest thing that I see here. Let's talk about the use of words like various. And I saw it over here on this resume as well, right? Full-fledged. Be careful with adjectives. Okay, adjectives, you can get a little crazy with adjectives, and those adjectives actually don't really mean anything. When I look at a resume and I say work on various platforms, I'm going to say, how many platforms? Was it just Microsoft Azure, VMware, and AWS? You say such as, so what were some of the others, right? I think this needs to be a little bit more defined in the sense of worked on all major cloud providers, comma, Microsoft Azure, VMware, AWS, right? Be specific about this. This is a good example. I worked on all cloud providers infrastructure, such as Microsoft, VMware, AWS, right? Be very, very specific about that. Managing and deploying new SIM environments for McAfee and Alien Vault. So this is a weird one. So you've got this statement here at the top, and then you have this statement down here at the bottom. So included SIM implementations, engineering and design of SIM solutions for mid-sized to large organizations, and then you have assist with managing and deploying new SIM environments. It's hard to read those two statements and not wonder if they're exactly the same. And so if they're exactly the same, then that tells me that you had no idea how to add more value to your resume. And if they're not the same, if they're different, then they're not different enough for me to understand what the different value is in this statement versus the different value in this statement here. Yeah, I think so. There's, I think Festivus brings it up, right? It's hard to go past tense to present tense. Let's talk about grammar just a little bit when it comes to resumes. and this is coming from a guy who relies very heavily on the red and blue squiggly lines in Microsoft Word to make sure that I'm speaking English correctly. You do not have to be an English major to write a resume, but you do have to maintain consistency. And I think if I were to kind of summarize what Festivus was saying, like that's really what we're talking about here, right, is maintaining consistency. If it happened in the past, right, so July 2017 to April 2019, everything here should be past tense, right? Everything in all of these should be past tense. If it's April 2019 to current, then that presumes that you're currently and actively doing the role right now, and so it should all be present tense. Just maintain that consistency throughout. So let's look at things like responsibilities include, okay? I don't think short sentences like responsibilities include X is a very good way to convey the work that you've done here. When I look at a statement like this, what I would rather see when I look at a resume was I performed ongoing tuning to meet incident response demands of 75 use cases on a monthly basis. I created approximately 5 new dashboards a month based on demands originating from the incident response team, risk and governance, vulnerability management, maintained those dashboards, as well as assisted in feature enhancements and debugging based on customer requirements. Right? You see what I'm doing there? Like, this is, you've got to take those responsibilities and add some quantifiers to them that show that you're capable of doing a quantity of work. This gets back to what somebody said earlier in chat about the Linux thing, where spinning up Linux in a VM doesn't mean that you have Linux as a skill set, right? This doesn't tell me whether you've got responsibilities of tuning one alert, doing one dashboard, or creating one alert versus a lot of alerts. And there's nothing wrong. And so this is a common misconception. This gets to the common misconception thing we talked about before. People are afraid to do this because they're like, well, I really actually only did do one alert or one dashboard. And so they're incredibly afraid to say, well, I actually really just did one. You can't be afraid to say that. This gets back to being real and some of the things that we talked about in chat, right? Which is, if you only did one, say one, right? If it wasn't a very big deal, if it wasn't something impactful, then let's take it out and let's put something else in there that actually is impactful. Maybe it was only one, but maybe that one was actually for something that saved the company time or money. Then let's take that out instead, and let's say, as part of my role for creating dashboards, I worked closely with the IT operations team, or I got a better example. I worked closely with the manufacturing team. They identified that they had a computer glitch that every Thursday at 3 p.m. caused them to lose $5 million of scrappage. So therefore, I built a dashboard working with them that ultimately saved the company $5 million, once a week. That is impactful. That shows that you have an impactful influence on the company. And so it's just about finding that impact point and making sure that we're highlighting that impact point that's on your resume. So I think that's my biggest takeaway when I look at this resume is you have lots of experience. You're missing the WIFM or the what's in it for me. You're missing the so what. And that's kind of the biggest thing that I think is missing from this resume. Let's head on over to chat and see if I missed anything in chat on this one. Yeah. Well, so it was actually Festivus. It was my word to PDF on this one. I did this to, try to keep, like I said, try to keep the PII down a little bit like that. Fitness industry to cybersec. You're probably the most in shape cybersec person we've got out here. Bullet point out the cybersec job way more. Absolutely. That's why, you can. That's a really good point, Napier. Right? You can see that he's got tons of bullet points. He or she's got tons of bullet points down here, but these are just 2 bullet points where they actually don't dive a whole lot into this. So yeah, absolutely, get a lot more bullet points in on the cybersec job stuff up here. Wish I would have started much earlier when I was straight into computers at a high school. Just be happy that you're in the career field now. I think everybody's, we're all having a good time, whatever entry point is. Don't worry about where you entered the race. Some specialized career, looking to make a switch. Yep. Again, Festivus is a great resource. Make sure you connect with him or reach out to him. Become good friends with him. He's one of our VIPs here, and he's got a lot of good experience on that. One of the best parts of making connections. You can learn from one another. Absolutely. Business analytics, the metrics of business arguments, the risk management, value, and cybersecurity. Absolutely. This gets back to a lot of the stuff that's missing out of this part of the resume down here. Festivus hits it right on the head with both those statements. Right. This resume has a lot of potential to be great. There's a lot of really, really good data points in this. The focus really needs to be on the business analytics, the metrics, a lot of these business arguments. This mergers and acquisitions one, this is huge. This is a resume. I'll tell you this. If I know who this person is, I'll make a couple guesses on them. This is a person who sees themselves as needing to get a entry-level job as an analyst in cybersecurity because they think that they have no experience in cybersecurity whatsoever. And they're forgetting about all of this down here. What I see here, and this is probably going to be another hashtag unpopular opinion, this is a manager or a director at a Big Four or some other type of business leader because they have all of this business experience, right? That makes them incredibly invaluable at the senior leadership level right here. I think you can continue to grow this throughout your career, especially if you've got that fire in your belly to keep learning the technical stuff. But I see somebody down here who is not leveraging their business experience. Absolutely. Business experience plus technical experience as a dream manager, 100%. And I think you've got so much business experience down here, and you've got just enough technical experience up here. This has got management written all over it. Oh, there's Nightbot. I almost read Nightbot out loud. Good point. I'll have to add some numbers to my resume involving my Splunk stuff. Yes, 100%. Numbers are, I can't stress that enough. Numbers are huge. Please, please, please include numbers. Include that with them. Thank you for the hydrate. The numbers are huge. Do not overlook the numbers. If you need help, let's have a conversation. It's all about finding that impact. Past present tense, we talked about that one. Yep, absolutely. Thank you for tuning into Stream Synac 21. All right. Yeah, if this person is listening, a conversation would definitely be worthwhile to help understand the mindset we were thinking. Yeah, I think there's this is a resume that I would love to just this is a Lego resume. I just want to take it apart and put it right back together because I think there's a lot to this resume that could be read on this resume. All right. So I ran a little over. I appreciate everybody sticking it out with me for this long. I know I try to keep it to 2 hours. Want to remind everybody, I know I covered a lot of the things that we've got coming up. I'll hit the highlights right. Don't forget next Friday. We're going to, everybody's going to be helping me choose which supercar I'm driving during the Big ID and the Guide Point event next week. November 7th, we've got the Secure West Virginia Conference, big, huge stream that we're going to have going on with that one. Make sure that you're, smash that follow button, smash that subscribe button. We appreciate all the new followers, all the new subscribers, that we got on the stream. You guys are all awesome. Thanks everybody for continuing to support us. All of the moderators, thank you. I thank all the moderators in chat who constantly and are dedicated to coming and helping us keep chat free and clear and safe space to chat. And so with all that, stay safe, keep learning. see you guys on Saturday. For up-to-the-minute cybersecurity news, make sure you follow and subscribe to the Cyber Insecurity channel on Twitch and YouTube. Also, make sure you turn on those notifications so that you know when we go live.